It's February 6, 2019. We're sat on the baraza of Guest House 5. My name is Shahab.
I'm Samuel Barclay.
Hello, my name is Franco Goese.
Hi.
Benedette.
My name is Ariel Huber.
Faran. I am Simone.
I am excited about these.
Kisikula!
I'm sat here with Samuel Barclay of Case Design.
The project architect for this, along with my amazing team, Simona and Farah Sounder, who's been here as well, and the team back in the studio. We've been collaborating with Shahab and Adil on this for, we realized the other day, almost 3 years.
Yep. But this idea of the building process actually being a process,
Yep.
back and forth, collaborative with craft people and builders.
I always thought like, oh, architects have to know everything about everything, and then they tell people sort of what to do. And what really I came to understand was that, no, I can actually find people who are doing things so far outside of my depth, and just by understanding who they are, what they do, I can draw them in and then give them the opportunity within a very loose framework that enables them to be excited about what they're doing and how they're doing it. There's a mutual respect, there's a dialogue, and it makes what we're doing better, it makes it more fun. And at the end of the day, I think it's a better product.
It's like you amass this field of collaborators that you come back to whenever appropriate. I think a lot of the people that you've brought into this project, maybe everybody is somebody that you've worked with on previous projects, and that's
oh, for sure.
so when you find them, there's a kindred sort of spirit and aspect to it.
And what's nice is that when we're working on a project together, we're swimming in the same stream in the same direction for some period of time, and then those paths will diverge when the project wraps up or comes to fruition, and then they'll go do something else that informs their practice and their process in a different way, that then comes back, and when we reconverge, we've built a new understanding about the world and work, and they've brought something new and seen a new experience that then informs something, and it's self-multiplying.
Adil and I have a lot of love and passion for this project. It's something we have been talking about for almost 30 years, really, in some shape, form or other. And what I find really inspiring here is just how much passion everybody brings. It's incredible to be here on site and just imagining. I'm really, on this trip, just visioning what this place is going to look like over the next few years with the growth and the type of community I think that it will hopefully attract. You and Sam and Case Design have an interesting way that you work, which is a little not necessarily conventional in terms of how maybe people in Europe or the US work these days.
We like to develop a framework, and then when we have this framework, we start to design while we are building. For that, we make a lot of models. On site, we have made a lot of mock-ups, just trying prototyping.
Yes, working with these craft people who maybe in other projects are not invited to be part of the process and to be part of the dialogue. But the way that you work is a dialogue. It's a continuous dialogue that unfolds.
It's amazing when someone from outside, from out of the picture, just arrive and give you some feedback, because in that moment you realize things that helps you in your work. So it's very important to be open to the feedback of other people.
This is actually the same color. This is the same mix. You wouldn't believe that. Look how blue it is. Here. That's why it's so unpredictable. I always try to come and mix the colors on site, because then I can work with its colors, which are site specific, which actually, you know, are created and made for this light, the nature, the building. This is pure pink, or it's called red oxide, that's the color. But then we want to see if we can, you know, tone it down a little bit, because it's very, I like that it's so pink, but you know, maybe we try to, you know, tame it a little bit. This is the green. That goes for the bathrooms. This is nice in the bathrooms, because it's fresh, it looks like the sea, the coral reefs out there, and it's very nice with the corals. If you look here, like this. So when you have these two next to each other, it's very nice and fresh, and also it works nice with the landscape. So the colors, they always have to work with the landscape outside, because we will always see the landscape outside, you know, when we look at the color, the landscape is out there. So that has to work together. And here we have this beautiful facade, this coral stone, red-orange coral stone, which is also very special, you know. So also the colors inside the building has to work with the colors which are outside, like the facade, you know.
As architects, we don't produce buildings, we produce representations of buildings that hopefully then communicate to the people who are making the buildings. And so the same care and attention that you put into the framing and the composition, we put into the artifacts that we make.
I guess that's also a big difference between a construction site where you take decisions in the process and you constantly have to look at it and you keep changing the project as it comes up, compared to a project where you draw a set of plans and you send them to site and you build it, because then the whole building process, you are so remote from the building process that it doesn't matter how a construction site looks.
The people that we collaborate with and the abilities, the interests, the skills and experiences that they have, it's an incredibly diverse group, and by having enough of the design resolved that enables you to get started, but not so much of it that it restricts collaboration. We try and establish a framework that's maybe even, in this case, even when it's done or nearly done, there's still enough looseness to come and inhabit it in ways that I never could have imagined. And so, yeah, I'm happy to have people interpreting and reinterpreting what we've designed and finding ways to inhabit it in unique conditions.
Yeah, it again speaks to this sort of generosity that I feel in your practice and in your work, and an openness which I've always found very powerful. I remember on many occasions you telling me some of the people that you work with and that we're working with here, that third, fourth, fifth generation masons or 60th generation carpenter or mason. I mean, just the lineage and the...
Yeah, I mean the masons a little bit less so, because it's that building technology has changed with the use of concrete, and you know, some of those guys that we've worked with are sort of more, not that they're self-made, but they've either learned from their fathers or they've done it themselves. The carpenters especially, it's something they've learned from their fathers, their uncles, their cousins. They start an apprenticeship when they're 14. It's an 8-year apprenticeship, and it's science, it's math, it's yoga, it's how they eat, how they work within the cycles of the month, how they work within the cycles of their farms, because they have to, before the monsoon, you cannot get them to work because they've all gone back to their village to tend to their crops.
Do you think there are any other places in the world where this sort of tradition is still alive?
It is, but not at this scale.
Right.
They are there by the thousands,
right,
easily the tens of thousands, if not the hundreds of thousands. But you know, I'm sure the lineage of that craft and tradition, it exists in Germany, it exists in Japan, but it's minuscule.
Right. You work with a lot of local craft people. You've also brought some really specialized, amazing talent from India with you. You were here from Italy. How is that working together, and how are those different communities interacting with each other? Tell us a little bit about that.
In the beginning was no easy because languages.
Yes.
And lots of misunderstanding. Then we developed a way to talk with drawings, with showing, and I just realized that it was much better if I was here instead to prepare a drawing and give to them.
Who has come out from India that you've worked with, cases worked with in India over here, and what have they brought to the table?
They were two amazing guys working. One was more specific for plastering.
Okay.
And the other guy was specific for stone. They have a lot of knowledge about construction, and was for me also a learning experience. Like I learned a lot from them. And when they left for just a kind of break,
Diwali or
yes. I noticed that the guy on site were kind of imitating their own way to do things. It's unbelievable when, for example, Yadav and Ariam just speaks their own language, but the guys here understand.
Amazing.
They use a few words in English, a few words in Swahili, and then they just understand each other.
Yeah.
Color can almost be a little scary for, I think, a lot of people.
I think, actually I'm also very, very scared of the wrong and right. What's wrong? It's maybe not the right word to use, but colors which don't work in that in any particular context. It's because then actually if the colors don't work or they make you feel bad.
It can be unsettling.
But it feels like over the last few decades there's been this movement towards graying and neutralizing. And so we're even losing that confidence in ourselves to kind of just go with what feels right.
That's true. But modernism was never always only white,
Right.
It also had color. But what happened at some point with minimalism, I think from the 60s and onwards, was that white became a sign of control.
It feels to me like color is coming back, and people are
absolutely. I mean, people need it, and also people want to break free of the change, break out of the tyranny, you know. Color is where life starts to me, That's where things become alive.
I recall, and I wonder if it's the same for you, a very influential walk through a local village, and
Giambiani.
It was Giambiani, exactly.
You made the decision to sort of give me this grand tour, which was fantastic. And it's funny, like all of the examples of architecture that we went and looked at, all these hotels and all these resorts and all these restaurants and all this thing, like what made the impact was that village.
The combination of that walk around the village and meeting Franco, the village sort of conceptually put us down a certain path, and then Franco just in terms of infusing a spirit really has taken us into this other all-encompassing direction and energy and spirit.
Yeah, I immediately saw, okay, here's this person who has this knowledge and experience of this land, of how this environment and this context works, and I thought of my friend Andy in New Zealand, who we also spoke about in that conversation. And I thought if I could combine Andy's ability to kind of conceptualize a landscape with Franco's ability to build one, and I just got unbelievably excited about putting all those worlds together. A lot of times a landscape you'll finish the project and then you come put the landscape in. One of the first buildings we built on this site was the nursery, right? And I think that just says something
Absolutely.
about the sort of the way that you and Adel thought about it, the input that Bernadette and Franco and Andy had, where everyone's aspirations were, and the way that we wanted to occupy the space in a gentle way.
Yeah.
Andy is somebody that I brought to the project. He's based in New Zealand. Everything was done on Skype. He never, to this day, and we're trying to get him here, but he's never set foot on site. What was your experience? What were the challenges of that relationship and also the opportunities?
Yeah, I think for us it was the first time to work together with a landscape architect so distant.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought first, I don't know if that's such a good idea, but I think it's also the person that you work with together, you know, and good for us because, you know, for us sometimes it's difficult to spend hours and hours on drawing landscapes because our passion is to plant them and to build these soils and to implement them, so that sometimes we're putting 150% energy and we get like 20% result. This way, you know, someone that really likes to do that, you know, is much faster and better does it, and we just shared that knowledge, and I mean the results are good, I think.
When we got the piece of land, it was basically a cleared, more or less barren piece of hard coral.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the strategy that you've worked on in making it, you know, what we see today?
In Africa, they say seeing is believing. And as permaculture works also a lot on observation and observing what is happening around you. Once we bulldozed the coral area and we left some spaces open at Fumba, we saw how quick the indigenous species were bouncing back off the ground. And the same guidelines we used here in Kisikula was climate change adaptation. That means how can we build something that is resistant, that needs little input, that needs little water, and even if the temperatures might rise because of climate change, there are basically, that is home ground. There are the local species or species that have proven themselves on Zanzibar. Then when we were introduced to Andy, you know, and we were communicating about what species of plants he would use within his design, we then, and the way, the strategy that he wanted to do with the landscape, you know, from the beach, coastal in the front, turning towards the back in a more Shamba local village style with big mango trees and jackfruits and these kind of things. I think the aim of Shehab and Adel is when the client will go home, that is in every aspect a special experience. And obviously the landscape, you know, we are come out of natural systems, you know, and if we want to relax and recharge in our holidays for the stress that lies ahead in the job, then the landscape, you know, a natural landscape has an energy in itself. That's where homeopathic medicine comes from. So you're kind of sitting in one, right?
Yep.
So that's the beauty of it.
So tell us a little bit of what you've been doing here at Kisikula.
I've been responsible, you know, we have a landscape architect that's in New Zealand,
yes.
Andy. And so when I would look at the plan and I would say, oh, Andy, you know, I don't think that plant would grow here because the environment here is so hot, the humidity is... So I would make a suggestion, a substitute, an alternate, and he would say, and he would look in the internet if it really fit into this whole picture of what he wants to have. And then he agrees, then I would do that. So I'm doing more the implementation, the actual planting. So, and also I've been responsible for also helping the staff to build the soil around the different guest houses. And one important part of the project that I'm really excited is the vegetable garden. When Franco said, oh, we will need a nursery, I said, oh, really? We need a nursery? You know, why can't we just, you know, get it from a nearby nursery? Now I'm very thankful we have it.
Why? What?
Because first, of course, it saves money because, you know, the initial, for example, we bought 20 of this yellow iris.
Yeah.
Now we have like, I don't know, 600
Yeah.
of them. We just use them as mother plants and
Yeah.
then keep on planting them. And then now with our, some of our landscaping finish, we can use actually the landscape materials as source of planting materials. So it saves us a lot of money.
It's a fully sustainable
Yeah.
little ecosystem
Yeah.
that you two are creating over here.
What do you think about the landscape, or how we can develop?
When we first started marking these landscape beds out, this was the first one, and yeah, I had seen the planting plan. I knew what plants are going to go in, but I never imagined it to turn out like this. We kind of create this soil bed on top of coral stone. We can't just keep putting tons of soil on top of this because it's not cost efficient.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's not economical. But over time, we are going to start building soil using organic material. So just how the forest works. That's what Franco kept mentioning to me. Just imagine it to be a forest, and we are imitating the forest back here inside.
Interesting. And how is the relation with the gardener that we have and the helper that's helping you with what do you think, what they are learning from you and what you are learning from them?
I think the concept of landscape is very new to them. At first, I had to start introducing them, okay, listen, this is another space. This is a room, but this is another space which is supposed to be respected and taken care of. Things like planting, like they are used to putting plants in a row and making a line out of them. And we are going more towards the natural organic field wherein you allow them to grow and form the way they would grow outside. It was nice to see them becoming more sensitive towards the landscape and becoming more caring towards it.
So what is permaculture in your words?
You know, there's so many definitions of permaculture, but for me, the one that I always like to use, because I also give permaculture seminars to kids, I always tell them it's creating something and using Mother Nature as your mentor. And we are part of this ecosystem, and that we should really try to learn from this ecosystem and use it to our advantage. At the moment, we are taking advantage of Mother Nature and not us taking advantage of what Mother Nature gives us. And we're getting more far away from Mother Nature, you know, kids growing up in cities where they don't even know where their food comes from. And that's actually what we plan to do in Kisikula, that when they step out, go to the garden, they would recognize, oh, that's the one that I had for breakfast. Oh, that's the one that I saw in my bathroom. That's the one that I use for my sunburn, you know. So once you have this relationship with Mother Nature, then you put more value to that, you protect it more.
Some of the cycles of the landscape in the kitchen and how the functions of one thing can become waste, and then the waste becomes productive. Can you expand a little bit on some of those, whether it's how we have chickens or the way that we recycle the Mukuti roofs for compost?
To move soils on Zanzibar is not legal. When we started to plant the landscape, we are ordered organic waste from other places. There's a local company called Sunrec. We said we need cardboard boxes. When we make holes in the coral, or when we lay organic material on top of the coral to create planting beds, we need different organic materials. So already there we started to develop a landscape with the waste product of somebody else. Then then basically on this soil, on this landscape, now we're going to grow this landscape. The landscape is going to cool the environment. We planted coconut trees, we planted a lot of other trees. They're going to cool in the environment, which reduces the amount of energy that you need later to cool down your rooms. Because, you know, it's like imitating a natural environment. A forest, it can cool itself. So if you have a high density of trees, you have a nice and relaxed, cool atmosphere around you. The kitchen, for example, would produce waste, which we, food waste, for example, which we would feed to chickens. Then the chickens can help us to, the manure of the chicken will help us to produce the compost, and from the chickens we can use the eggs or we can use the meat, and no flies or something like this is created. The chickens could be also used to shredder newspaper and other organic materials. You put them in their run and they help to simplify the composting process basically, and to create a fertilizer that then could grow or feed the mango trees, the vegetable gardens, the jackfruit, you know, with all these plants that we have in the landscape, which then end up in the kitchen and then end up on the table. The water from the showers and the other sinks can go to septic tanks, and from the septic tanks they overflow in some French drains, screen drains that then feed part of the landscape, so they didn't need no water, and then it's clean and then can reintroduce through the ground, through the coral rock in the groundwater levels. We imitating, that what permaculture is, we imitate the functionality of the local ecosystem within our design. We're working with the environment, with the seasons, we're not against, we're with.
Yeah, this is unique for us in the way that the landscape has been such an integral part of the development. We've really had to, you know, with Andy and Franco and Bernadette, we've had to work very hard to sort of create a landscape and a naturalistic landscape, but to do it in an organic way, both literally in terms of the way that it's produced, but also in terms of its expression or language. And the processes have been an interesting part of the collaboration. Do you find a dramatic difference in the way you think about landscape spaces versus constructed architecture?
For me, it adds a layer of complexity in a very good way, and this interwovenness between landscape and architecture is something that is very crucial for me. Like it really interests me, and this is something also very strong in the architecture you are doing in all the projects, whether it's in the city or in the landscape. It always relates to a place, and so the views are very important and the light coming in is very important, so the natural elements.
We've always cared very much as a practice about how things are made, but I also think that people, there's a sort of global shift in people caring more about where the things that they're either consuming or experiencing, about where those things have come from and how they were put together. 3 months from now, all the landscape will look completely different. All the pathways will look completely different. There'll be water in the swimming pool. There'll be a beach in front of that overlooking the cliff. All of those things will be in a much more finished state. And to sort of combine this with that, for me, then creates, I think, a very interesting and much more rich narrative for how this came to be.
I'm looking on one side to document the works and the precision that goes into the project and to the material that you're using in your projects, but also, on the other hand, the relation to the surroundings, to the nature, which means including the trees and the leaves and the shadows in the pictures. And this is something very strong here in this project, which will define the pictures. It's never going to be abstract building shots without the surrounding, because this is overwhelming here, the situation.
Let's be present. Be present in space. We want presence.
Yeah.
And if we make spaces which are too predictable, we are not aware. We lose the presence because we get lazy. We already know how the space is, so we don't have to pay attention.
Yeah, and what's cool about working with Sam is that for some of your projects, you want color, so you're totally
More and more.
which is fun. You're really, we have a very good dialogue about, the concept of how to use the color in the space, and also, that we both understand color as a material and not just as an application, what a lot of people do, which is so boring, But when you can see the color as part of the space, as part of the material, and see it as a spatial element, more dimension, more than just an add-on, then I think it becomes interesting. And you also think of it in that way. So in this way, it's just such a good dialogue that we have.
Yep. This late in the game, we're making some pretty, not crazy, but we're making some very interesting, very thoughtful changes that impact it, and that comes out of this process, which has been fantastic with Milena.
This is an example, I guess, of the coral and the craft of the coral. And the materials are really what? Coral,
we have concrete, wood,
glass. What wood are we using?
We use the Meninga, which is the brown Meninga. There are different qualities. Comes from Mozambique and arrived here with the ship. We have exposed concrete and
glass for the windows. And
glass from the windows.
It's pretty simple palettes, actually.
Material.
And then we have tanga.
We have tanga stone, which is this
sort of a very local.
But it's a sandstone.
It's a sandstone.
Comes from Tanga.
Yep. And even I think the kind of choice of the color was something that you had to negotiate with the people sourcing because you had a very specific.
Because it's more pinkish than yellowish.
Yeah.
So we were telling them that we were looking for this color, and of course they were telling me, oh, but this is a stone. We don't know which kind of color it will be inside. But I told her I know that, but we are trying to find that specific color.
Yeah, I can't wait. The trees and all of the material and everything that we've used here is really the type of thing that is going to weather unexpectedly, but really interestingly and beautifully.
Yeah.
I agree with you about Sam's work, and that's one of the things that really attracted us to Sam's work, which it feels to me like a very human practice, not a trend. It's not operating on that plane of trends, and there is a timelessness.
We've always wanted it to be a practice that was built around the people that were involved in it and the passions that they had. And if we're doing that and we're making work that we're excited about and proud of at the end of it, and we've built relationships through that process, then that's nourishment.
Yeah.
We kissed.